She traded love for luxury, and lost everything. When the man of her dreams turned out to be a lie, Sarah Chen had to rebuild from the ashes of her own choices. Would you have walked away before it was too late? The hum of laughter and champagne flutes filled the ballroom like static electricity, bright, buzzing, intoxicating. Sarah Chen adjusted the neckline of her navy dress for the third time, pretending to study the banner above the stage, Future Horizons, Marketing in a Changing World. A title so bland it almost mocked her. 5 years in the same firm, the same office cubicle, the same slow Fridays pretending she cared about product launches she'd long stopped believing in. Across the room, Marcus's text lit up her phone. Don't forget, movie night tomorrow? I rented the Goonies again, winking face. A small smile. He was dependable, sweet. The kind of man her mother would say was a good one. The kind who never forgot to warm the car on cold mornings or refill her coffee mug. And yet, dependable had started to feel like a synonym for predictable. She typed a quick reply, sure, smiley face, and slipped her phone into her clutch. But she couldn't shake the thought, was this it? The rest of her life in neat, quiet circles. Dinner at 7, game night on Fridays, the same 2 friends who never asked hard questions? That was when she heard the laugh. It wasn't loud, just confident, a smooth ripple that seemed to part the noise of the room. She turned. Damien Sterling stood by the bar, his hand resting lightly on the counter as though the world were balanced there for him to command. Mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, eyes like they'd seen everything and found it mildly amusing. He wore his suit like it had been tailored for his body alone. No logo pins, no name tag, just ease. He was talking to the VP from her firm, who looked visibly flattered just to be included in his orbit. Sarah didn't mean to stare. But Damien noticed anyway. He raised his glass slightly, as though toasting her from across the room. She froze, pretending to adjust her earring, but the air around her shifted, suddenly charged, alive. When he finally crossed the room toward her, it felt almost cinematic. Sarah Chen, he said, with a smile that suggested he already knew her name. Marketing manager at Bristol, right? I saw your team's campaign for the Aurora launch. Clever work. No one ever called her work clever. Not even her boss. She blinked. You've seen our campaign? I don't forget a good line, he said smoothly. You're the woman behind bringing clarity to a cloudy world. I like that. Her cheeks warmed. It's just copywriting. Nothing is just anything when done well. The way he said it, simple words, but soaked in a kind of attention she hadn't felt in years. They talked for what felt like minutes but stretched past half an hour, about travel, ambition, creativity. He told her about his latest real estate project in Santorini, how he believed architecture should make people feel something. When she laughed at his description of board meetings as necessary torture, he studied her the way people study art. Then came the question that slipped beneath her skin like a whisper. Do you ever feel like you're meant for more? The words landed like a match in dry grass. She hesitated. Sometimes. But everyone feels that way, right? Not everyone does something about it. He handed her his card. Thick, matte black, her name scrawled on the back in neat silver ink. Let me show you the view sometime. Before she could respond, someone called his name from across the room. He smiled, touched her hand lightly, a brush of warmth, deliberate, and was gone. Sarah stood there, card in hand, pulse quickened. Marcus noticed the difference that night. You're quiet, he said as they drove home. Long night. She stared out the window at the city lights streaking by. Just tired. He reached for her hand. You work too hard, babe. You should talk to your boss about taking a few days off. She nodded, but her thoughts were miles away, on a matte black card burning in her clutch, on a man who spoke like every sentence was a promise. Days passed, but the conversation lingered. She caught herself dressing a little sharper, checking her reflection longer before work. When her co-workers gossiped about the event, she didn't mention Damien, not even when someone said, "Wasn't that the guy with the Maserati?" What a presence. That evening, she and Marcus sat across from each other in their cozy apartment, The same dinner they'd had countless times: salmon, brown rice, broccoli. The same show playing in the background. "You know," he said between bites, "I was thinking, we could take a trip next summer. Maybe Colorado? The trails are beautiful that time of year." Sarah smiled politely. "Yeah, that'd be nice." But something inside her flickered. Colorado versus Tuscany. Hiking boots versus heels on marble floors. She hated herself for thinking it. After dinner, Marcus fell asleep on the couch, arm draped across his chest, mouth slightly open. She watched him for a long time. He looked peaceful, good, and suddenly she felt this sharp ache of guilt. He deserved better than the distance growing in her eyes. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "I can't stop thinking about that conversation. Dinner this week? D." Her breath caught. She stared at the message, the reflection of it glowing across her face. It felt dangerous, intoxicating, like standing at the edge of something enormous. 5 full minutes she didn't move. She thought of Marcus's gentle snore, the flickering light from the TV. Then she typed a single word. Maybe. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Damien's gaze, steady, knowing, like he'd already read her answer before she'd written it. In the darkness, she whispered to herself, "It's just dinner." But some part of her already knew. The moment she replied, her old life had begun to slip quietly out the back door. The crossroads had come. And Sarah Chen had just taken her first step down the road she might never come back from. It began with roses. Not the grocery store kind Marcus sometimes brought home after a parent-teacher night, but an avalanche, 50 long-stemmed crimson blooms delivered to her office with a single note. For the woman who made a room full of noise stand still. Her co-workers gasped, whispering. Sarah smiled awkwardly, pretending to roll her eyes, but inside something electric unfurled. When she texted Damien a polite, "You didn't have to do that," he replied instantly. "I don't do things I have to. I do things I want." That night, Marcus reheated leftovers and asked about her day. She told him it was fine. She didn't mention the roses sitting in the corner of her office, perfuming the air with a sweetness she couldn't escape. A week later, a black car waited outside her building. The driver handed her a small envelope. "Dinner. 8 p.m. No excuses." She told herself it was curiosity. Networking. Harmless. But when she stepped into that rooftop restaurant, the kind she'd only seen in magazines, the world tilted. Damien rose from his seat, every inch of him deliberate. "You came," he said, as if he'd already known she would. The table glittered with candlelight, the skyline spreading below like a living jewel. He listened when she spoke, laughed at her jokes, and never once checked his phone. When she mentioned her firm's budget limits, he frowned like injustice itself had been committed. "You should be leading your own agency," he said. "You have too much brilliance to be anyone's second." No one had ever said that to her. Days turned into weeks. Espresso deliveries for your late nights. Tickets to a private art exhibit. Lunches that lingered past the hour. She began to crave the sound of his voice, the attention that made her feel luminous again. Marcus noticed. "You're different lately," he said quietly. "Is everything okay?" She kissed his cheek. "Just busy at work." But her reflection told another story. New dresses, softer smiles, a glow she didn't recognize. When she compared their lives, the difference was blinding. Marcus's beat-up sedan versus Damien's Maserati. Their small apartment versus Damien's penthouse overlooking the river. And yet, the real contrast wasn't wealth, it was energy. With Damien, she felt seen. With Marcus, she felt safe. And for the first time, safety felt small. One evening, Damien handed her a velvet box. Inside, a delicate gold bracelet, thin as a promise. "It's not a gift," he said. "It's a reminder. You deserve more." Her throat tightened. "You shouldn't." He leaned closer. "Don't say no out of habit." She looked at him, the city lights reflecting in his eyes, the weight of his words pressing on her chest. Somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered stop. But louder still came another, "Finally." When she got home, Marcus was waiting with takeout and 2 candles flickering between them. Special night, he smiled. 5 years today. Sarah froze, the bracelet glinting beneath her sleeve. She forced a smile, but her heart was already miles away, at a rooftop table where danger wore a perfect suit and called her name. The rain started before dawn, a steady whisper against the windows, like the world was trying to warn her. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, suitcase open, clothes folded in crisp silence. The bracelet Damien gave her glimmered faintly in the gray morning light, mocking the tears she wouldn't allow to fall. Marcus stirred. "What are you doing?" His voice was thick with sleep, confusion. She froze, hand gripping the zipper. I think I need some time." He sat up slowly, eyes scanning the suitcase, the shoes by the door, her trembling hands. "Time?" He blinked, as if the word didn't make sense. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" She forced herself to look at him, this man who had shared her laughter, her quiet dinners, her life. I feel stuck. Like I've been living the same year over and over. I need to figure out who I am." Marcus's brow furrowed. "Who you are? Sarah, we've built something real. We talked about buying a house. Starting a family. Where's this coming from?" Her voice cracked. "I don't know. I just can't breathe here anymore." He stood, the hurt spreading across his face like a slow burn. "Is there someone else?" The question landed like a knife. She hesitated too long. That silence was an answer. Marcus laughed once, bitterly. "Wow. So that's it? 5 years, and you're leaving me for some rich guy?" "It's not about money," she whispered. "It's about wanting more out of life." He stepped closer, eyes glassy. "You already had more. You just didn't see it." She flinched. "Marcus, please. Don't make this harder." "Harder?" His voice cracked. "You're walking away from everything we've built. What am I supposed to do? Pretend you never existed?" Tears blurred her vision. She grabbed the handle of her suitcase, heart hammering. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "You deserve someone who loves this life. I don't anymore." He reached for her, desperate. "Sarah, don't do this. You're making a mistake." She paused at the door, trembling. "Maybe. But it's mine to make." Outside, the rain had turned to a downpour. She dragged her suitcase through puddles, every step feeling heavier than the last. When she slid into Damien's waiting car, his hand brushed hers, warm, confident, steady. "You did the right thing," he murmured. She nodded, though her chest ached so violently she could barely breathe. As the car pulled away, she looked back once, at the small apartment glowing faintly through the rain, a shadow moving in the window. Marcus stood there, watching, unmoving. And for the first time, she realized the difference between leaving and losing. Still, she turned away. Later that night, in Damien's penthouse, she stared at the city lights reflected in the glass and whispered to herself, "This is what freedom looks like." But her reflection didn't look free. It looked afraid. At first, it was everything she'd dreamed of. Morning sunlight spilling across marble floors. Silk robes. Espresso from a chrome machine that looked like art. Damien's penthouse perched above the city. Glass walls, a skyline view, a life that felt like a movie. Sarah floated through it all like she'd slipped into someone else's story. Weekend trips to Paris, dinners at places without prices on the menu, a closet full of names she used to whisper like prayers, Prada, Chanel, Saint Laurent. She told herself she'd earned it, that this was what taking control looked like. But control, she soon learned, was a word Damien preferred to define himself. It started small. "The red dress tonight," he'd say casually, handing her a jewelry box. Then, "Don't wear that lipstick, it's too loud." And once, as she reached for her phone, "You don't need to check in with anyone. You're not working anymore." He said it with a smile, a joke, almost, but something cold brushed the back of her neck. When she laughed it off, he kissed her forehead and whispered, "Good girl." One afternoon, as they lounged on a yacht in Monaco, he told her about his ex-wife. "She thought she could outsmart me," he said, swirling his drink. Tried to take everything in the divorce. But I made sure she didn't get a cent. He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. Sarah smiled weakly. That must have been awful. Not really, he said. It taught me not to hand over my trust so easily. She looked out at the ocean, endless, glittering, empty. When they returned home, he surprised her with a gift, a diamond necklace that caught the light like fire. You're my world now, he said. And I take care of what's mine. The words should have sounded romantic. Instead, they felt like a lock clicking shut. He began to pick apart her old life, the friends who didn't understand her new reality, the job that never appreciated her worth, the boyfriend who kept her small. And slowly, she stopped calling, stopped checking emails, stopped being the version of herself who could argue. Damien filled every silence, every space. The laughter she once loved now sounded like permission she hadn't given. Late one night, unable to sleep, Sarah wandered to the balcony. The city pulsed below, but up here, it was too quiet, like a museum exhibit of someone's perfect life. Her phone buzzed with a message from an old coworker. We miss you at the office. You okay? She typed back, I'm fine. Just busy, then deleted it. When she turned, Damien was standing in the doorway, watching. Who are you texting? He asked softly. And no one. Just a friend. He smiled, but his eyes didn't. Let's keep our world simple, Sarah. The night air felt colder than the marble beneath her feet. The silence came first. It crept in slowly, disguised as peace. No alarms, no deadlines, no coworkers asking for revisions. At first, Sarah called it freedom. But as the days blurred together, it began to feel like the air inside a snow globe, perfect, still, and suffocating. She hadn't realized how much her job defined her until Damien convinced her to quit. You're too talented to waste your time there, he'd said, slipping his hand around her waist. You don't need them anymore. You have us. She'd believed him. Now her morning stretched empty. Damien left early for meetings, returning late with the scent of whiskey and impatience. She filled the hours scrolling through social media, friends laughing over brunches, co-workers celebrating promotions, Marcus posting engagement photos with a woman whose joy looked effortless. Sarah tried calling a friend once. We should catch up, she'd said brightly. The reply came hesitant. Sure, if Damien's okay with that. Her stomach tightened. Word had spread, she was that girl, the one who vanished into luxury and forgot where she came from. Damien noticed her mood before she spoke a word. You've been quiet, he said one evening, pouring her a glass of wine. You miss that little office job, don't you? I just miss people, she murmured. He chuckled. People don't miss you, sweetheart. They envy you. Don't mistake curiosity for friendship. His tone was calm, patient, like explaining something to a child. She nodded, though something inside her cracked. Later that week, she mentioned applying for freelance work, just to keep busy. Damien set down his fork with a soft clink. Why would you do that? It looks desperate. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You have me. He smiled, but his eyes dared her to disagree. Days turned into rituals. Yoga at 10, online shopping, waiting. Her world had shrunk to the size of his penthouse. Sometimes she'd wander to the window, staring at the streets below, people rushing somewhere, anywhere. One morning, she found her old employee badge buried in a drawer. The plastic was scratched, the photo outdated. But holding it made her chest ache with something she couldn't name, pride, maybe. Or loss. When Damien came home that night, he noticed it on the counter. What's this doing out? I was just remembering, she said softly. He picked it up, twirled it between his fingers, then tossed it into the trash. No need to live in the past. Her heart sank with the sound of plastic hitting metal. That night, Sarah lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The room was quiet except for the hum of the city below. She thought of the girl she used to be, the one with dreams, friends, plans. Now she was someone else's reflection. When she finally closed her eyes, Damien's words echoed through her mind. You have me. And for the first time, the thought didn't comfort her, it terrified her. The first time Damien raised his voice, it wasn't about something important. It was about a text. Sarah had been messaging a former co-worker, just catching up, a harmless chat about an upcoming campaign. But when Damien saw the notification flash across her phone, his smile vanished. "Who's Alex?" "Just a friend from work," she said, startled. "Work you don't even have anymore." His tone sharpened. "Why's he texting you at night?" She laughed nervously. "It's nothing, Damien. You're overreacting." He slammed his glass onto the counter. "Don't tell me what I'm doing in my own house." The sound echoed through the kitchen, and Sarah froze. She'd never seen him like that, jaw clenched, eyes dark, a stranger wearing his face. Moments later, he softened. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Stress from the investors. You know how it is." He kissed her hand, gentle as ever. But that night, she deleted Alex's number. The cracks deepened. Invoices began piling up in the office Damien kept locked. She wasn't supposed to see them, but one afternoon, while tidying, she noticed the corner of a file sticking out from a drawer. Bank statements. Overdraft notices. Names of companies she'd never heard of. And his phone calls, whispered, urgent, never around her. When she asked, he smiled like a magician caught mid-trick. "Nothing you need to worry about. Business gets messy when you're at my level." But the Maserati was gone one morning, traded in for something more practical. The yacht trip stopped. The dinners became takeout. Still, he played the part. Lavish talk, grand gestures, but now they felt like reruns of a show losing budget. One night, at dinner, she asked, "Are we okay financially?" Damien laughed, but it sounded forced. "You think I'd let you worry about money? I've got everything handled." Then, quieter, "You don't trust me?" "I just don't," he cut her off. "You're not built for this kind of stress. That's why I protect you." He reached across the table and touched her face, but his eyes were cold. Later, while he showered, she checked his desk again. A printed email lay half-crumpled in the trash. Final notice, payment overdue. Her name appeared at the bottom of a document she didn't recognize, co-signer. Her stomach dropped. He'd used her signature. When the water stopped, panic jolted her into motion. She shoved the paper back, heart pounding. He emerged, towel around his waist, grinning like nothing had happened. "Wine on the balcony?" She nodded, hands trembling. That night, Sarah lay awake, staring at the city lights outside the window. For the first time, they looked less like stars and more like warning signals. The man who once promised her the world was hiding something, and now, she was part of it. Sarah waited until he left. Damien's car engine faded into the distance, and for the first time in months, silence felt like oxygen. Her pulse thudded as she stuffed essentials into a duffel bag. Passport, old clothes, the cash she'd managed to hide from grocery runs. Her hands trembled, but her mind was clear. Just go. She opened her laptop to book a ticket, anywhere. But the banking site flashed access denied. The joint account she thought they shared was gone. Every card linked to his name. Her own savings? Closed for consolidation, as he'd called it. The realization hit like cold water. She didn't even have enough for a taxi. Her phone buzzed. "Damien, miss me yet?" She froze. He wasn't supposed to text this soon. Was he testing her? Watching her? Her heart pounded as she glanced toward the hallway camera, the one he'd installed for security. Suddenly, she wondered who it was really protecting. That night, she tried to reason with him. "Damien, I need to work again," she said softly over dinner. "I've been thinking, maybe marketing freelance, just part-time." He didn't look up. "We've talked about this." "I know, but I feel." "You feel restless because you're not used to being taken care of." His tone was firm, final. "Work is chaos. You're better here, with me." Her hands clenched around her napkin. "I'm not a possession." The room went still. Damien lifted his eyes, calm, almost amused. "No one said you were. But let's not pretend you could walk out tomorrow and be fine. Her throat tightened. He leaned forward, voice dropping. No job. No money. No friends left who'd take your call. You built this life with me, Sarah. And I'm all you've got now. She swallowed hard. That's not true. Then prove it. He pushed his chair back, stood, and walked away, leaving her alone with the echo of her own breathing. Later, she called her former boss's number. It rang twice before a clipped voice answered. Sarah? Oh. I wasn't expecting. Listen, we filled your position months ago. I just wanted to say hi, she whispered, humiliated. Sure. Take care. The line went dead. She tried an old friend next, voicemail. Then another, blocked. Her world had narrowed to the size of his shadow. When Damien came home, he found her by the window, still in the same position. He smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You're too beautiful to look this sad. She didn't answer. Don't worry, he said, slipping an arm around her. Everything's under control. Outside, lightning flashed, sharp, white, and brief, and for a moment she saw their reflection in the glass, his arm tight around her waist, her eyes wide and hollow. A perfect picture of love. Or captivity. It started with a knock. Sharp. Relentless. Not Damien's usual rhythm. Sarah opened the door to two men in suits, not the tailored kind Damien wore, but the official kind. Cold eyes, clipped voices. We're here to speak with Mr. Sterling regarding Sterling Holdings and investor complaints. Her stomach dropped. He's not home, she managed. They handed her a thick envelope. Legal papers. Her name was on them too. Co-signer. When they left, she stood in the doorway, trembling. The marble floor beneath her bare feet suddenly felt like ice. Damien came home hours later, furious. They had no right to come here, he shouted, slamming the papers onto the counter. It's just noise, competitors trying to ruin me. His tie was loose, eyes bloodshot. He poured a drink with shaking hands. Damien, she whispered, my name is on this. I don't even know what I signed. Exactly, he snapped. You didn't need to. You trust me, don't you? She flinched. People are saying the developments. They're delayed. Not dead. He threw the glass. It shattered against the wall. Do you think I'd let everything fall apart? She wanted to believe him, but the words echoed hollow in the empty spaces of the penthouse. The furniture already sold off piece by piece, the fridge half empty, the once bustling phone now silent. The empire he'd built on charm and credit was collapsing under its own glittering weight. Days later, the news broke. Real estate mogul Damien Sterling under investigation for fraud and embezzlement. Sarah stared at the TV, her name flashing in the scrolling ticker, business partner listed in lawsuit. Her hands shook so badly she dropped the remote. She wasn't a partner, she was a pawn. Damien paced the room, phone pressed to his ear. We'll fix this. I'll fix this. Damien, they're freezing accounts, she said. We have nothing left. He stopped. Looked at her. We. The word stung like a slap. You said we were in this together. He laughed, a low, bitter sound. That was before you became a liability. Her throat closed. You used me. I gave you everything, he hissed. You wanted the dream, now live with the price. That night, she woke to find the closet half empty. His suits, his passport, his watch, all gone. She searched the apartment like a madwoman, calling his phone over and over until it went straight to voicemail. Then came the email from the bank, all joint assets frozen pending investigation. Her knees buckled. The penthouse, once glowing with warmth and luxury, now felt hollow, echoing with the ghosts of laughter that had never really been hers. She sank to the floor, surrounded by silence, her reflection fractured in the broken glass of his last thrown drink. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. And for the first time, Sarah realized they weren't coming for Damien. They were coming for her. The eviction notice came with the morning mail. A single sheet of paper, thin but heavy enough to end a life. Sarah read it twice, hands trembling, eyes burning. The penthouse, the last illusion of control, was no longer hers. She had 3 days to vacate. Her credit cards were useless, her accounts frozen. The clothes in her closet, once trophies of a dream life, now felt like costumes from a lie. She grabbed the cheapest suitcase she could find and filled it with what she could carry: a few outfits, a toothbrush, and the small photo Marcus once took of her laughing on a hiking trail. Back when joy didn't have a price tag. She left the rest behind. For 2 nights, she slept on a friend's couch, a friend she hadn't spoken to in nearly a year. The first thing the woman said when Sarah knocked was, "So, it finally caught up to you." Sarah didn't argue. She just nodded, tears spilling silently. "Stay a few days," her friend said. "But you'll have to get back on your feet, okay?" Sarah whispered, "I don't even know where to start." Every morning, she woke before sunrise, haunted by the echo of Damien's voice, "You can't survive without me." She tried applying for jobs, but her portfolio was outdated, her references gone. Her old employer wouldn't take her calls. One HR email simply read, "We've decided to move forward with other candidates." When she saw Marcus's engagement photos online, her heart clenched. The woman beside him looked gentle, grounded, the kind of partner Sarah used to be before chasing glitter and ghosts. That night, she stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of her friend's tiny apartment. Dark circles, hollow cheeks, eyes that didn't belong to the woman she once was. "I did this," she whispered. "I did this to myself." Eventually, she swallowed her pride and reached out to Marcus, not to rekindle, just to apologize. He met her at a cafe, cautious but kind. "Sarah," he said, sitting across from her. "I was angry for a long time. But I don't hate you." Tears welled in her eyes. "You should." He shook his head. "You chased something you thought would make you happy. We all do that sometimes. You just lost yourself along the way." His forgiveness hurt more than his anger ever could. When she asked if he could help her find work, he hesitated. "I'll ask around," he said finally. "But you'll have to do the rest yourself." She nodded. "I will." That night, she walked home in the rain, no umbrella, no luxury car waiting at the curb. Just her, the pavement, and the faint glow of streetlights. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was falling anymore. She was finally hitting the ground, hard, painful, real. And maybe, just maybe, that was where rebuilding began. The first morning in her new apartment, Sarah woke to the sound of pipes rattling and traffic outside her thin walls. No marble floors, no sweeping skyline, just sunlight creeping through half-hung curtains and the smell of instant coffee. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She sat on the edge of the mattress, still on the floor because she couldn't yet afford a frame, and stared at the blank wall across from her. It looked like freedom. Quiet, unadorned freedom. Her days were ordinary again, painfully so at first. She worked part-time at a cafe near the river, taking orders, cleaning tables, counting tips. Some customers recognized her faintly from her marketing days. One whispered, "Didn't you used to work for Bristol?" Sarah only smiled. A lifetime ago. Every cup she served, every small kindness she gave a stranger, felt like a slow re-entry into the world. Humility had become her currency, and strangely, it spent well. Therapy came next, awkward, raw, necessary. "I keep dreaming about the penthouse," she told her therapist one afternoon. "But in the dream, it's empty. I walk from room to room calling his name, and no one answers." "What do you feel when you wake up?" "Relieved." It surprised her to say it out loud, but it was true. The silence she once feared had become her peace. With time, she rebuilt small connections, coffee with her old friend, Sunday calls with her parents, cautious laughter over takeout. The bridges she'd burned didn't come back whole, but some at least stopped smoking. When her first freelance marketing client sent payment, a modest sum, but earned entirely on her own, she stared at the confirmation screen and cried. Not for the money, but for the proof that she still existed outside someone else's shadow. Months passed. The world didn't magically forgive her, and she didn't expect it to. But she was learning to forgive herself in pieces, through early mornings, honest work, and nights spent journaling about everything she'd once mistaken for love. One evening after her shift, she walked home along the river. The air smelled like rain and possibility. Across the bridge, she saw a couple laughing, arm in arm, a small pang, then a soft smile. She no longer wanted their life. She wanted her own. At home, she hung a framed photo above her tiny desk, the same hiking picture Marcus once took. Her younger self, wind in her hair, laughing without needing anyone's permission. "I missed you," she whispered. As she turned off the light, her phone buzzed, an email from a company looking for marketing help. "Saw your portfolio," it read. "Would love to talk." Sarah smiled, heart steady. Not a new beginning. Not a fairy tale. Just another step forward, slow, real, earned. For the first time in years, she wasn't running toward someone or something. She was walking home, to herself.